The courtroom was ice cold, but Nora Bennett's palms burned with sweat. Her ex-husband sat a few feet away, perfectly composed in a charcoal suit, his hair slicked back with the kind of precision that always made people trust him. "Your Honor," his attorney said, "with dramatic weight, we submit this audio recording as evidence of Ms. Bennett's instability. You'll hear the way she speaks to her son." Nora's breath caught as static filled the speakers. Then her own voice, warped, furious, screamed through the room. "What is wrong with you, Liam? You never listen." The audio cracked, full of venom, followed by the sound of something crashing. She could barely hear anything beyond the pounding in her ears. "That's not real." She wanted to scream. That's not what happened. But if she said that now, she'd sound exactly like what Grant claimed she was: volatile, defensive, delusional. Across the room, Judge Moreno's expression didn't change. But Nora knew she was losing. Grant didn't look at her. He never did in court. Instead, he leaned down to straighten Liam's collar. The gesture was gentle, loving. Nora's stomach twisted. She tried to make eye contact with Liam, sitting beside Grant, dressed in his school picture button-down. He looked too small for the chair. His face was blank, but his fingers tapped nervously against his tablet case. When recess was called, the courtroom emptied like water down a drain. Nora didn't move. "Mom," Liam whispered as he passed her on the way out. His voice was barely audible. "I have something, but not yet." Nora turned to him, but he was already gone, trailing behind his father like a shadow. She sank back into her chair, fists clenched in her lap. If the judge believed that recording, she could lose everything: her weekends, her rights, her children. She didn't have Grant's charisma. She didn't have his money or connections. All she had left was the truth. And a 10-year-old boy who had just whispered a lifeline she didn't understand, yet. 6 months earlier, the walls of Nora's new studio apartment were the color of old bandages. The radiator coughed every few minutes, and the single window looked out onto a dumpster. But it was hers. After 12 years in Grant's 5-bedroom house, with its open floor plan and manicured lawn, this 400-square-foot box felt like exile and strange, fragile freedom. The bed was a futon she folded into a couch every morning. The kitchen sink leaked. The oven door didn't close all the way, but no one yelled in it. No one whispered insults across dinner plates. Every morning at 4:45 a.m., Nora's alarm buzzed. She'd slide into her diner uniform, throw on concealer, and pour herself half a cup of coffee she couldn't afford to finish. After 8 hours of sticky menus, impatient truckers, and lukewarm tips, she'd bus home, nap for an hour, then head to the night shift at the gas station. There was no margin. Not for rest, not for grace. Every cent went to rent, food, and legal fees. Her lawyer had warned her that the court wouldn't look kindly on her finances. But she didn't care about perception anymore. She just wanted to keep seeing her kids. That was the deal: alternate weekends, supervised phone calls. Grant's lawyer had argued that the children needed stability. Apparently, stability looked like a 4-bedroom house and a father who had never once changed a diaper. Liam had grown quieter. Their phone calls used to be full of tangents: Minecraft volcanoes, the latest coding project. Now she got stiff little updates. "School's fine. I'm tired. I have homework." He never said "I miss you" anymore, but she heard it in the pauses. Chloe was different. 6 years old and still full of sunshine, she ran to Nora every pickup with arms wide and pigtails bouncing. But lately, her hugs came with questions. "Daddy said you're sick. Are you better now? Are you allowed to yell again, or did the doctor say not yet?" Nora had frozen the first time she heard that. Chloe was too young to invent those phrases. Someone had fed them to her. She forced a smile, smoothing Chloe's hair. "Mommy's okay, sweetheart. Sometimes grown-ups just don't agree on things." She would cry later behind the locked bathroom door of the gas station, her phone screen glowing with photos of the kids from a year ago. Back when Liam laughed in every picture and Chloe didn't ask if she needed pills to be a nice mom. She sent updates to her lawyer. She logged every visit, every call. She baked cookies during their weekends together. She kept the apartment spotless. She was doing everything right. but each week it felt like she was slipping further out of their lives, and Grant was rewriting her in theirs. She'd lost her home, she was starting to lose her children, and worst of all, part of her was starting to believe she deserved it. The knock on the door came just after sunset, when Nora had finally collapsed on her futon, with leftover pancakes and aching feet. She opened it to find two people standing in the hallway, one holding a clipboard, the other wearing a polite, unreadable expression. "Nora Bennett," the woman asked. "Yes, I'm Dana Fields with Child Protective Services. This is Officer Marquez. We received a complaint regarding your daughter Chloe." Nora's stomach sank. "A complaint?" Fields glanced at her clipboard. "It's been reported that you locked your daughter in a closet during your last visitation. She was reportedly screaming and crying for several minutes. We're required to investigate." For a moment, the hallway tilted. "What? That's not true." Her voice cracked. "She slept in my bed that night because she had a nightmare. We watched Frozen twice and ate too many cookies. I would never. May we come in?" Officer Marquez asked gently. Nora stepped aside. The apartment, already small, seemed to shrink even further as the strangers entered. They examined the single room, the open closet with no lock, the photos of Chloe taped to the fridge. They asked questions, took notes, peered out the window. "I brushed her hair," Nora said quietly. "I sang to her. I even let her skip brushing her teeth." Fields offered a nod that didn't mean anything. "We'll file our report and follow up if needed." When they left, Nora sat on the floor for a long time, knees pulled to her chest, the only sound the faint wheeze of the radiator. The next day, she sat across from her lawyer, Erin McMillan, a kind woman in a cluttered office with too many open files and not enough time. "They're stacking a case," Erin said, pushing up her glasses. "This isn't the first complaint. It's not even the second." Nora blinked. "What do you mean 3 police reports? All from your marriage, verbal disturbances, emotional outbursts, property damage. You mean the plate I broke when Grant cornered me in the kitchen and told me I was a failure in front of the kids?" "The court doesn't see context, Nora. It sees patterns." Nora felt the sting of betrayal deep in her bones. Grant had always known how to poke her until she cracked. He never yelled, never raised a hand. Just a calm stream of judgment and accusation followed by a 911 call and a polite, concerned tone. "My wife is having another episode. Maybe we should consider joint custody," Erin said softly. "Alternate weekends, primary residence with Grant." "Are you serious? I'm trying to help you keep some ground. You're losing this fight." Nora didn't respond. She just stared at the wall behind Erin's head, where a faded poster read, "Justice is blind, not deaf." But right now, Justice didn't seem to be hearing her at all. And Grant was still the composed, generous father. Stable, calm, safe. At least that's what the report said. The journal started as a therapist's suggestion. "Write it all down," the woman had said, gently scribbling something on a pad. "Your thoughts, your memories, even the doubts. It helps untangle the noise." So every night after her shift at the gas station, Nora curled up on the futon with a cup of tea and opened a spiral-bound notebook. At first the words came slowly, just scattered sentences, flashes of frustration, and the ache of missing her children. But soon the entries thickened. She began to notice patterns, the timing of CPS visits, the way Chloe's language shifted after staying with Grant, the odd questions Liam stopped asking. A rhythm was forming, a blueprint almost, and the deeper she wrote, the more it made sense. "He's not just turning them against me," she wrote. "He's staging a story, and I'm the villain." One Friday night, as Liam sat cross-legged on her rug, assembling a model spaceship, he looked up and said it so casually, it almost didn't register. "Dad talks to people on the phone about making you look bad." Nora froze. "What do you mean, honey?" He shrugged. "Like stuff he wants them to say. He practices what he's going to say in court, too." Her fingers tightened around her pen. "How long has he been doing that?" Liam looked back at the ship. "I don't know. A while." Later that night, after the kids had fallen asleep, Nora picked up her phone and opened the voice memo app. She stared at the blinking red button for a long time before pressing record. "My name is Nora Bennett," she began softly. "And I need to say this before I start doubting myself again." She spoke about the first time Grant made her question her memory, about how he could insult her with a smile, then deny ever saying a word, about the cold strategy of it all, the way he baited her, documented her reactions, and used the system to make her look like the threat. The next morning she played it back. Her voice sounded tired, but clear, unapologetic. It was the first time in years she felt like she might be holding something solid. And maybe, just maybe, she wasn't alone in noticing the truth anymore. Nora was washing dishes when Liam appeared behind her, holding his tablet tight against his chest, like a secret he wasn't sure he was allowed to keep. "Mom," he said quietly, "can I show you something?" She dried her hands and knelt beside him. "Of course, baby, what is it?" He hesitated, glancing toward the door, even though Chloe was napping and no one else was home. "I didn't tell anyone. I didn't know if I should. But I've been saving stuff. From Dad." Her breath caught. "What kind of stuff?" He sat cross-legged on the floor and opened an app she didn't recognize. Something cloud-based, password protected. He tapped on a folder labeled Notes, but inside were audio files, dozens of them, each dated, each neatly labeled. He played one. Grant's voice, unmistakably casual, filtered through the speaker. "I've got a guy who can clip her voice from that old Christmas video. We'll splice it over a phone call, make it sound like she's screaming at Liam." Nora's heart stopped. Another recording. Grant laughing with someone, possibly his brother, about Chloe's performance when CPS came. "She nailed it," said Nora, slammed the door and yelled. "We rehearsed it the night before." Nora covered her mouth with her hand. "Liam, how long have you been doing this?" He looked down. "Since I saw you crying in the kitchen that night. After you talked to the lawyer." "I thought I was hiding that," she whispered. "You weren't." He told her how he'd figured out Grant's tablet password, how he started saving things to the cloud in case his dad wiped them, how he labeled each file and backed them up in a folder he renamed Math Homework just in case. Nora stared at him. Not as a child, not as her baby boy, but as someone who had quietly stood guard for her when she thought she was all alone. That night, after putting Chloe to bed, Nora called Jordan Kim, an old friend from college who taught digital forensics at the community college. She sent him a sample file. "I need to know," she said. "Is it real? Can we prove it?" The next morning he called back. "The file's clean, unedited, timestamp matches. Nora, this is admissible." Her next call was to Aaron, her lawyer. "I'm done," she said. "You've been telling me to compromise, but I don't need compromise anymore. I have proof. Emma, it's Nora. And I'm hiring someone else." That afternoon she met Tasha Green again in the courthouse cafe. The woman who had once helped her breathe through panic now slid her a card. "Call this number," Tasha said. "It's a legal advocate who specializes in high-conflict custody. She helped me build my case." Nora pocketed it. For the first time in months, she wasn't reacting to Grant. She was building something of her own. And she wasn't doing it alone. The emails from Grant's attorney came daily now, formal, clipped, and full of venom, wrapped in professionalism. "We are deeply concerned about the emotional manipulation Mr. Bennett's children are experiencing," one read. "It is clear Ms. Bennett is influencing them with distressing narratives about their father." Nora wanted to laugh, or scream, or both. Grant had always known how to twist reality just enough to make the lie sound noble. Now he was painting her as the one corrupting the kids, when all she'd done was tell them bedtime stories and hold them when they cried. "You can't respond emotionally," the new advocate Elise Tran had warned her. "You need to document, prepare, and let the truth speak for itself." So she did. Nora cataloged everything. She color-coded Liam's files. She synced recordings to transcripts. Every evening after work, and after tucking Chloe into bed, she sat at her tiny desk beneath the flickering ceiling bulb, building her case one folder at a time. Liam, meanwhile, moved with quiet purpose. One morning before school, he handed her a small flash drive. "Don't keep it here," he said. It's not safe. Later that day, he slipped it to his homeroom teacher, Miss Rivera, a woman with sharp eyes and an even sharper sense of justice. He handed it over with just 5 words. "It's for my mom. Please." Ms. Rivera called Nora that evening. "I know who your ex-husband is," she said, voice calm but firm. "And I know what men like him can do." "You believe me?" Nora asked, stunned. "I've seen this before," Ms. Rivera replied. "You're not crazy. You're not alone. That boy of yours is brave. I'll keep it safe." Nora hung up and sat in silence, the phone still warm in her hand. Something had shifted. The world hadn't changed, but people were finally seeing through the mask. The night before the hearing, Nora packed the recording's transcripts and a printed timeline into a battered canvas bag. Her hands shook as she zipped it shut. She had no money for an attorney, no promises of fairness, no idea how the judge would receive her, but she had her son's voice. She had the truth. And tomorrow she would walk into that courtroom terrified, yes, but no longer empty-handed. The courtroom was colder than Nora remembered. She sat on the plaintiff's side with her hands folded in her lap, pressing her fingertips so hard they went numb. Across the aisle, Grant looked pristine, crisp, navy suit, gold watch peeking from his cuff, his expression somber and serene. A man deeply concerned for the well-being of his children. His attorney, Mr. Laskin, stood with practiced gravitas. "Your Honor," he began, "we'd like to reintroduce a recording that clearly demonstrates the environment our client is trying to protect his children from." Nora closed her eyes as her own voice poured through the speakers again, distorted, angry, and completely out of character. "You never listen, I'm done with you." Then a loud crash. It wasn't real. She knew that now. But the judge didn't. When the recording ended, a thick silence settled. Judge Merritt, a woman with graying temples and the face of someone who'd seen 1,000 ugly custody battles, looked down at her notes, unmoved. "Ms. Bennett," she said, "do you have a response?" Nora rose slowly. "That audio is doctored. I never said those words. I was never on that call." Laskin scoffed. "Your Honor, this is the 3rd time Ms. Bennett has denied clear evidence." "I'm telling the truth," Nora said, her voice shaking. "It's been altered. I can prove." Then a voice cut across the room. "Your Honor," Liam said, standing up. Nora froze. Everyone turned to look at the small boy in the 2nd row standing beside Ms. Rivera, who sat stone still with her hand on his shoulder. "Liam, sit down." Grant hissed. Judge Merritt held up a hand. "Let him speak." Liam swallowed hard and clutched his tablet. "I have a recording. It's from Friday night. My dad was on the phone. He didn't know I was awake." Grant's face drained of color. I think you should hear it." There was a pause, then a nod. Liam walked up, tablet shaking in his hands. The bailiff plugged it into the courtroom speakers. Grant's voice filled the room. "We've got her. The fake audio's loaded and ready. Judge'll eat it up. By Monday, she's done." Another clip followed. "Make sure Chloe says the closet thing again. Keep her cute. That gets him." A murmur rippled across the room. Nora dared a glance at the CPS representative who was now leaning forward. Pen paused in midair. Then the last clip played. "She's never getting custody again. We'll move to Arizona next month. Give it a year, kids won't even remember her face." The silence afterward was different this time. No longer heavy with judgment, but stunned. Judge Merritt sat back, her pen slowly lowering to the desk. Mr. Laskin opened his mouth, but nothing came out. "Ms. Bennett," the judge said finally. Voice measured. "Do you have additional evidence supporting this?" Nora stood. "Yes, Your Honor. Audio files, metadata, witnesses. Everything is documented." Judge Merritt looked toward Grant. "Mr. Bennett, do you have an explanation?" Grant opened his mouth, but for once the words didn't come. Because the mask had cracked. And the courtroom had seen what was behind it. Grant shot to his feet, eyes wide, voice rising in a way Nora had never seen in public. "This is a setup," she coached him. "You think a 10-year-old thought of this himself?" Liam flinched. "Mr. Bennett," Judge Merritt warned, "sit down or I will hold you in contempt." She manipulated him, he shouted, pointing at Nora. She planted all of it, but Nora was already reaching into her bag. Calmly, she handed a USB drive to the bailiff. This contains copies of all recordings. The originals are stored with Miss Rivera, my son's teacher. Here is her signed statement. Judge Merritt reviewed the document, then signaled to the court clerk. We'll recess for 2 hours. I want it to authenticate the files. CPS begin immediate interviews with both children. Mr. Bennett, you are to have no contact with them during this time. Grant stood motionless as the courtroom emptied his face, a twisted mask of disbelief. Nora exhaled for the first time in weeks. She didn't know what would happen next, but for now, the tide had turned. And for once, someone else would be scrutinizing his story. That evening, the three of them ate spaghetti at the tiny kitchen table. No lawyers, no transcripts, no whispering dread between bites. Just the sound of forks clinking against plates, and Liam explaining how he wanted to learn JavaScript. After dinner, he opened his tablet one last time. Nora watched as he scrolled to the folder labeled Dad Recordings. You sure? She asked gently. Liam nodded. We don't need them anymore. With one tap, the files vanished. Months of fear, secrets, and evidence gone. Chloe crawled into Nora's lap, her voice small. Daddy said you didn't want us, that you left because you were tired of being a mom. Nora's heart cracked. That's not true, baby. I wanted you every day. Chloe hugged her tighter. I know now. He lied. Later that week, Nora stood in front of 12 women at a shelter downtown. She told them what no one had believed at first. About manipulation without bruises. About raising a brave son. About finding her voice again. Tasha was in the front row, nodding already. Drafting plans for a support group. It wasn't a headline. It wasn't a courtroom win. But it was peace. And that was enough to start. 3 weeks later, Grant stood before the judge, not as the polished architect or doting father, but as a man convicted of evidence tampering, false reporting, and custodial interference. He was sentenced to probation, mandatory therapy, and ordered to pay Nora's legal and counseling fees in full. Nora didn't attend the sentencing. She didn't need to. That same afternoon, Judge Merritt granted her full legal and physical custody of Liam and Chloe. Grant's visitation rights would remain suspended pending long-term evaluation. When they got home, Liam pulled a folded envelope from a drawer. Is this the letter you wrote the night before court? Nora nodded, surprised he'd found it. She unfolded it and read it aloud. Her voice shaky at first, then steady. If I lose you, know that I never stopped fighting. Know that I always believed in the truth even when no one else did. Chloe sat curled beside her. Liam leaned his head on her shoulder. Let's keep it, he said, to remember what Chloe asked. Liam smiled, that even when everything felt lost, we weren't. Nora tucked the letter into a new box marked beginning, and for the first time that word felt true.